all, SIC Test Masters welcomes you to the live session of PTE Listening. Here, actually, we'll be discussing all about PTE listening, its question types, the marking criteria, and other important tips and strategies related to ace your listening part. So, before actually starting with PTE listening, we'll be first moving on to the next slide, which is actually about what is PTE. So PT, which is the Pearson test of English, is actually divided into four different modules, that is speaking, reading, writing, and listening. It is an integrated exams test wherein you will be judged on all the four modules, its skills and points, which will be combined together and you will be getting your scores. This English proficiency test is used for both academic purpose as well as for visa related purposes. It is 2 hours long and you will not be getting any break. So I suggest that please have your water breaks or maybe washroom breaks done before actually taking the exam. Moving on to the next slide, which actually deals with the things which you need to remember before the test starts. So most importantly, you need to check your headphones and your mouthpiece before the exam starts. If you just say if there is any problem or something, you can actually raise your voice and you can move to the examiner to get that correct before the exam. Once you say yes, it will not be taken into consideration. Same is the case with your system or maybe your keyboards. If you feel any discrepancies or issues with your systems, please raise your voice before and look up to the examiner to get that rectified. Also check your pens or the markers that you will be getting to write down your notes throughout the PT listening exam, and accordingly just check for that if the cap is on or not, the marker is working or not. Most importantly, focus on your score and your test. Do not get intimidated by other viewers or other test takers. You do not have to let yourself down or maybe worry regarding the voice and the sound quality of other test takers. Focus on your preparation and focus on your own things that you will be dealing with. Moving on to the next slide, which deals in with the four different modules and their frequencies, which you will be seeing in their exam. Starting with speaking, which is divided into 5 different question types. First, read aloud, which has a frequency of 6 to 7, followed by a repeat sentence that comes around 10 to 12 questions. Next is the describe image, roughly 3 to 4 questions are there, after which comes written lecture 1 to 2, and last is the answer short question, which is around 5 to 6 questions. Moving on to the next module, which is writing module. You will be getting 2 different question types. First is summarize written text, around 1 to 2 questions. Another one is essay. Mostly you will be getting just 1 essay, but there are rare chances that you might get second one as well. So focus properly and write it down. Moving to the third module, which is your reading module, and is divided into 5 question types. The first one is reading and writing fill in the blanks, which is around 5 to 6 in frequency. Next comes up your reorder paragraphs, which is 1 to 2, followed by multiple choice, multiple answers, 1 to 2. Next comes up your very important question type, reading fill in the blanks, around 4 to 5. And the last one is multiple choice, single answer, mostly which is only 1. Last module is listening, wherein you will be getting 8 question types, starting from summarize spoken text, 1 to 2, multiple choice, multiple answers listening, 1 to 2. Next is fill in the blanks listening, roughly around 2 to 3 questions. Highlight correct summary is 1 to 2. And multiple choice single answer, only 1 is there, followed by highlight correct summary, select missing word, each 1 question types. Then last second is highlight incorrect word, 2 to 3 questions, and finally write from dictation, which comes around 3 to 4. So be particular with all your question types and be focused till the end of your module. Moving on to the next slide, which actually deals in with listening score matrix and the importance of each question types in your listening module. Starting with the 3 question types which are actually giving marks from speaking module. These are repeat sentence, read your lecture and answer short question, and rest 8 types are from listening module. So if you just have a look at the listening score matrix slide, wherein repeat sentence is the most important and is around 26% weightage, or maybe one of the thing wherein 26% marks is directed toward from repeat sentences towards listening exam. Write from dictation followed by retail lecture. Summarize spoken text comes up to 22%, 20%, 14%. Highlight incorrect words. Listening fill in the blanks are in the range of 5% each. Wherein listening multiple choice, single answers, multiple answer, summary, select missing words is 2 to 1%, and answer short questions as well in 1%. So we'll be now actually focusing on all the question types briefly, and we'll be discussing about all these in details. So firstly, we'll be starting with repeat sentences, which actually has maximum weightage if we talk about speaking as well as listening module. We'll be starting with repeat sentences slide. In repeat sentences, you will be actually getting a sentence of 9 to 16 words, which is played for you. This is roughly around 10 seconds wherein you'll be listening to an audio and this audio will be played only once. So remember, you cannot actually hear that audio. You cannot remember that audio for a longer time. After the sentence is done, you will be hearing a beep sound and you need to start about speaking for it on like next 10 seconds roughly. The frequency of this question, as I mentioned earlier, is 10 to 12 questions. This contributes to listening as well as speaking and is very important. The parameters which actually deals in with giving marks for repeat sentences is fluency, 5 marks, pronunciation, 5 marks, and your content, 3 marks. So the first one, the fluency and clarity, is actually giving marks to the speaking module, wherein the content gives marks to the listening module. So you need to focus both, and if your content is right, means up to the words that has been mentioned, those 10 to 12 words, if these are right, you will be getting marks directly to the listening module. So more the content and more is the marks diverted towards the listening module. Things actually you should remember when you will be giving your repeat sentences. It is fluency, first and foremost. Here fluency is a smooth flow. You should not be very fast and you should not be very slow. Avoid hesitations and self-correction. So in a layman terms, actually, we can say that PT, listening, or maybe speaking is a one-way traffic, wherein once you have said that sentence, you do not have to rectify yourself. Pronunciation again comes up to speaking very clearly. Always remember, need not to give any accents or something. Always speak naturally and put your Indian accent. Need not to go for American accent or something like that, which will make your speaking fake. Content, as I mentioned earlier, more the marks in content, higher will be your weightage towards listening section. So content here means the words which you are actually hearing in your original sentence. Do not skip these words. If 100% content is there, you will be getting 3 on 3. If 50% content is maintained, you will be getting 2 marks out of 3 points. And if it is less than 50, you will be only getting 1. One thing always remember, need not to stop. Suppose you do not have actually heard it properly and you cannot remember the sentence completely, go for using certain tricks. Suppose the sentence was, I will be giving my PT exam after my term breaks are over. You have only heard, or maybe you have only you are only remembering the first part. So go for using trick in the second part. Do not change the order though. So here it can be, suppose you actually remember the first part. So I'll be giving my PT exam. My name is Roshni. So actually you can go for using such sentences or maybe repeating the same sentence twice, but need not to be quiet, because 3 seconds if you will be quiet, the recorder will be off. Make the strategies and memorize the things. You can actually go for first half remembering the things, second half writing it down, or maybe vice versa. You can actually go for writing shortcuts or maybe abbreviated terms in your erasable notepad, and then you can actually keep on remembering the things. When you will be actually preparing for your exam, go for practicing 35 to 40 questions daily for repeat sentences, as it will give you marks for both speaking as well as listening. Moving on to the next question type, which is retail lecture. So retail lecture, it is here actually you will be hearing an audio lecture of 40 to 90 seconds, which will be played to you. You need to note the keywords while listening the lecture. These keywords will be the one which will be actually helping you to gain more marks. After the audio stops, you will be hearing a beep sound. And once this beep sound plays, you need to start speaking the lecture that you have actually heard. The time you will be given for completing your lecture is around 40 seconds, and within these 40 seconds, you need to complete your lecture. The frequency is 1 to 2 questions, and it contributes marks to both listening as well as speaking. So be very careful, as this is again one of the very important question, which will not only help you to get good marks in your speaking, but also it will help you to get very good marks in your listening one. The parameters wherein you will be marked, or maybe you will be getting deductions, is fluency, pronunciation, and content, each having the weightage of 5 points. So fluency comes up when you are actually fluent and you are not using any fillers. It gives you marks directly to the speaking section, wherein the content is the keywords which you will be using during your lecture that you have actually heard from the lecture notes, and by these more familiarity with the keywords, the more marks towards your listening section. So moving on to the next slide, which actually deals in with the things to remember, or maybe the minor strategies and tricks that you will be needing to ace your retail lecture. So first point is fluency. So you have to be actually very smooth, no fillers and no pauses should be there when you deliver your lecture. You do not have to hesitate, and again, same as mentioned in repeat sentences, do not try to rectify yourself. No need to go for self corrections. Content, wherein if you need to gain more marks in your content, you need to score, or maybe you need to score high, you have to actually go for at least 9 to 15 keywords, which will help you to get more marks in the content part. These 9 to 15 keywords, roughly, you will be using in the form of simple sentences. See, actually, you can, everybody here, all the examiners are actually having their own templates which you can use. But use these templates in a very wise manner, because nowadays, actually, the AI software picks up your template and gives sometimes deductions for those. So be careful and judiciously use your templates. I would suggest, instead of remembering long paragraphs, you can go for using simple terms and short sentences and putting your keywords in one sentence and followed by second sentence and third sentence and so on. If suppose you did not get the information properly about the lecture, go for using the similar type of keywords that you have heard in the lecture, or maybe repeating 1 or 2 lines from the lecture, so as to go for matching the content from the lecture into your speaking. Always check for grammar, vocabulary, and the pauses that you are taking. And if you do not have much keywords in your hand, go for repeating the same keywords. But one thing is the key to remember, that always before submitting your retail lecture, or maybe before focusing on your timeline, always go for concluding it. You can use words like to conclude, overall, in conclusion. Use such keywords wherein your software can identify that you are now about to conclude your lecture. Moving on towards the next, which is answer short questions. Answer short questions are not very important, but again, it gives marks to both speaking as well as to listening. So moving on to the slide of answer short questions. Here you get the frequency is around 5 to 6 questions, and you will be getting questions based on general knowledge. This can be as easy or sometimes related to the biological questions, or maybe bio-related questions. After the audio stops, you will be hearing a beep sound, and only then, after, you have to start like 1 to 3 seconds lap you can take after the question completes, and then you need to start speaking your answer. It contributes to listening and speaking. Single or maybe few words are more than enough. Need not to focus much on long phrases and sentences. If the answer is right, you will be actually getting 1 point. If the answer is wrong, you will be getting 0 points. So do not worry, there is no negative marking. So the things to remember while answering answer short questions that you will be actually getting in the next slide. So firstly, need not to go for complex sentences, sentence structure or phrases which will make you confused or maybe confuse the AI software as well. 1 to 3 words are fine, and you can actually go for using tricks while answering the answer short questions. So if you are not sure about the answer, that what exactly it should be, go for repeating any keyword from the question, or maybe you can actually mention, I don't know. But this Phrase has to be very used very fluently and with utmost clarity, so as to give you marks related to the enabling skills which comes up to fluency. Wrong content means 0 marks for listening, but fluency will help you to gain marks in speaking part. Use the trick and at least repeat some keywords from the question instead of keeping quiet, because this will not help you and rather you will lose marks in both the cases for fluency as well as for content. So neither you will be scoring for speaking module nor you will be getting marks for listening. So these three questions actually help you to get marks for speaking as well as listening module. Now moving towards the other 8 question types which are taken from listening module, we'll be individually dealing in with. The first one is summarized spoken text. So summarized spoken text is actually similar to written lecture of speaking module. Here the difference is there you were listening to the lecture and you were actually repeating it by speaking. Here again, you will be listening to a lecture, but this time you need to write it down. So if we talk about summarized spoken text, so audio recording will be played and you need to write a 50 to 70 word summary wherein you can use full stops n number of times. You have 10 minutes to listen and write your summary. Audio begins to play automatically and you will be able to listen to the recording only when you will or only once, and so always be careful and note down the important keywords on your erasable notepad. Right, the word count is will be shown at the bottom of the screen, wherein you need to maintain the 50 to 70 words limit. Minimum 50 words has to be there, and maximum 70 words has to be there with full stops. The frequency is 1 to 2, and it contribute to listening as well as to speaking. This is very important. So practice it almost every day. You need to go for 5 to 10 written lectures and 5 to 10 summarized spoken text. The criteria or the parameters which actually give marks to summarize spoken text are content, which directly relates to the keywords that you will be using from the lecture that you have heard. Form, this is actually very easy to score the 2 marks in form, wherein you just have to maintain the 50 to 70 words marking word criteria, and you have to start the sentence with capitals and end the sentence with a full stop. Grammar, vocabulary, and spellings has to be taken care very minutely, because this will actually help you to get good marks in your enabling skills. Moving on to the next slide, which deals in with the things you have to remember while answering your summarized spoken text. These are, you need to actually make sure that the main idea, you have noted it down in your erasable notepad, and always support your points using the booklet, wherein you will be noting down the keywords ranging from 9 to 15, at least 9, minimum of 9 keywords should be there in that. Next comes up to the summarizing of the main point, and you need to briefly add the supporting points to it. Check your sentences wherein the subject verb agreement is maintained or not, tenses are in the right form, or maybe the writing order is maintained or not. Always check for the grammatical errors and the spelling mistakes, because spelling mistakes are very important and maybe you will help you to make or break the marks. Always manage your time. You can actually go for planning 3 minutes, write your answer for 5 minutes, and check for spellings and grammars up to 2 minutes. Quickly revise as you get overall 10 minutes to solve your summarized spoken text and move to the next questions, which comes up in the next line for listening module. Next, we'll be actually dealing with multiple choice questions. In listening, you will be getting 2 types of multiple choice questions. One is single answers, another one is multiple answers. So moving on to the slide for multiple choice questions. It is recommended that you always read the question before the audio starts, so that you can actually get the brief idea about the question and what you have to actually hear from the audio. Always note down the keywords in your mind, and as the audio starts, start matching it with the options given. If you are not very quick in doing multitasking, you can actually go for writing notes in your erasable notepad, and you can match those questions or maybe match those keywords with the options given in the question paper. Single answers, it will be only one that you will be encountering with. For every correct answer, you will be getting 1 and 0 for the wrong answer. But in case of multiple choice answers, there will be 2 questions, and there is negative marking in multiple choice questions. So for every correct answer one, if you have chosen the wrong one, you will be getting -1. So a brief suggestion or maybe a quick recommendation that need not to go for both the options marked if you are not sure about it. Always mark just one question, one option, so as to at least save your marks and avoid negative marks. This is not very important as you will be just encountering 1 to 2 questions having a total weightage of 4 to 5 marks, and will not help you gain much marks for other modules. It will just give 0 or 1 marks in your listening module. Moving on to the next important question, which is listening fill in the blanks. Very important as this will not only help you to gain marks in the listening module, but also will help you to gain marks in the writing as well. It will also help you to score good in enabling skills as it gives marks to spelling criteria as well. So moving on to the listening fill in the blanks, wherein recording will be played only once and you will be displayed a transcript in front of the screen wherein the questions are mentioned. You have to type the words on the based on the information that you have actually heard from the listening audio. You can here use two methods. Either you can use the erasable notepad and quickly listen to the audio, read the transcript, and keep on writing the short forms in your erasable notepad. But if you are very quick in typing, you can actually transfer the answers directly to the screen and you can save your time. Frequency is around 2 to 3 questions, and it, as I mentioned earlier, very important question type as it gives marks to both listening as well as to the writing. So the criteria which actually helps you to gain marks here is very simple. If the answer is correct and spelled correct even, so 1 point. If the answer is correct but you haven't spelled it properly, so you will be actually getting a 0. No negative marking, so at least guess the word and write it down. Moving on to the next slide, which actually deals into the things to remember when you will be dealing with questions of fill in the blanks listening. Firstly, when the audio begins, always keep your cursor to the starting point and keep moving simultaneously with the audio. Always read the transcript quickly before the audio begins so as to get a brief idea about what actually you have to listen to or what actually you will be dealing with. You can actually go for certain guesswork because wherein you have to focus on the blank is about what, how, who, or maybe when, where you can actually have a short prediction in your mind, and you can, with this guesswork, you can actually find out the right word in the audio. As I mentioned earlier, if you are actually fast in typing, go for writing directly it on the screen. You can actually use shortcuts while writing on the screen or maybe on the erasable notepad. And once the audio is completed, you can complete those sentences and complete those words rather, and you can actually check for the spelling and grammar errors. Carefully listen and determine the right word. Go for selecting the singular or plural versions of the blanks you have chosen for, because this as I mentioned that you will be getting a complete 0 even though answer is correct, but the form singular plural is wrong, or maybe ed or s is wrong, maybe the spellings are wrong. So you will not be getting any 0.5s. It will straight away 0 for the for incorrectly spelled but right answer. Spellings has to be correct, singular plurals has to be correct. You can actually read the sentence that whether the sentence follows the tense of past, present, or future, or actually you can go for knowing about the noun, whether it is singular or plural, and accordingly your verb will be singular or plural. So as we all know that if the noun is singular, your verb used will be plural, and if it is noun is plural, your verb used will be singular. So be very careful with the grammatical mistakes as it will actually make you lose your marks, as listening fill in the blanks is really very easy, but you need to actually check for the spellings. Moving on to the next question type, which is highlight correct summary. Not very important for listening as it has the weightage of 1% for listening, but if you are not that good with reading module, so you need to give some importance and focus towards highlight correct summary. Now next, moving on to the slides dealing with the things you need to actually take care of and the points which are there in highlight correct summary. Always select the summary that best matches to the recording, as we know that in listening you will be only hearing to the audio once and you need to listen it carefully so that you can choose your correct option. there will be several options mentioned, but you need to find out the correct one. Here, you do not have to actually jump on the right answer. You need to listen to the audio, make sure of the right keyword that you are hearing, or maybe sometimes you can write those keywords in your erasable notepad and later on focus on the after reading the options. So as you are actually reading the options, that's why the this question type gives marks to reading also. If the answer is correct, you will be getting 1 point. If it is wrong, so 0. There is no negative marking. So I would suggest not to skip the question and to give certain 30 seconds to 40 seconds time duration for this question, so as to have some help to the reading module. Moving on to the things which you have to remember when you will be actually dealing with the questions of highlight, correct, summary. So you need to actually understand the theme of the audio and the message conveyed by the speaker, and then only you will be actually able to select the right option out of the four given. It may be difficult to read and listen at the same time. So instead of doing multitasking, you can actually write down your notes in your erasable notepad and later on match those notes with the options given. So I would suggest go for practicing 5 to 6 questions a day if you actually have to get marks for your reading module. But weightage for listening is just 1. But again, 1 marks do matters when it comes to your exam. Moving on to the next question type, which is select missing word. So select missing word, again, not so important, and it gives marks to only listening. So it has a weightage of 1% only. But this 1% also do matters when we are actually struggling with getting good marks, or maybe struggling with getting marks related to 6.5 bands or maybe 7 bands, that is above 60, 65. Moving on to the slide of select missing word. Here, actually, you need to guess the last word or maybe group of words. When the recording starts, you will be actually, these words will be replaced with a beep sound. You need to select the most appropriate option, and once the recording is completed, you need to guess the word and choose your option. The audio will not be played multiple times, so be very careful as to what you are listening to and accordingly mark down your options. The frequency is 1. Maximum cases it is just 1. You will not be getting another question for this. Several options are there, but be very careful when you are marking your questions, because for every correct answer, you will be getting 1 point. And for every wrong answer, there is no negative marking, it will be just 0. So if you leave the answer, then also it will be 0 if it is, but at least if you attempted, there's the 50% chance says that you might get 1 point, which will be actually devoting its marks towards the listening one. So instead of skipping this, always just listen to the audio, give 20 to 30 seconds of time to think over to the answer. Guesswork has to be made and move on. Things to remember when you actually are doing questions for select missing word. Understand the theme and the message conveyed by the speaker. Understand what is actually the speaker saying throughout the lecture, and try to guess or maybe predict the right answer after the beep sound. By the first half of the audio, you actually get a very good idea about the topic, and once the 3/4 part is completed, you can predict how it will be ending. So select missing word is actually the complete game of prediction, as how good you are at predicting the things, or maybe how good you are at guessing the right answer. So guesswork plus right prediction will help you to get this 1 marks, which devotes directly to the listening one. Moving on to the next question type, which is very important in terms of listening. And this is the last second question type. So by the time you come to this question, you have very limited time left. So this question is highlight incorrect words. Very easy, but you have to actually match the speed and you have to manage the time. So moving on to the slide of highlight incorrect words, wherein you will be presented with a transcript of our audio recording. However, the transcript contains certain errors. The audio begins automatically. You need to do multitasking here, as you need to simultaneously listen to the audio and move your cursor along with the audio onto the transcript given in front of the screen. You will click on the words in the transcript which are completely different, or I would say incorrect, as the name suggests, from the audio, and you need to actually go for. You have to be very quick to mark your answers. The frequency is around 2 to 3, but it is very important. So at least practice 15 to 20 questions of highlighting correct word every day so as to get the good marks. And it is important because it gives marks to listening as well as reading. Reading in itself is a very tough module. So by this simple question, you can actually go for getting your marks or maybe increasing your marks in the reading module. But you have to be very careful of the negative marking done in this question. So for every correct word, you will be getting +1. For every wrong word marked or selected, you will be getting a deduction of 1 point. And if you are not sure about that word and you have left that word or maybe missed that word, you will be getting a 0. So I would suggest always go for those words for which you are actually sure and certain. Need not to go for taking risk. Moving on to the next slide, which deals in with the things to remember when you will be giving your when you will be attempting questions for highlighting correct words. So, firstly, listen and be prepared to act quickly, because here what makes this question type really tough is the speed and the multiple things that you have to do. One, listening to the audio. Second, reading the question, and third, marking down the correct option. So you have to be very quick, and the multitasking skills has to be really good for you. You need to skim the transcript before the audio actually begins, so as to have a brief idea about what it is exactly, so that you can actually focus on what all words do not suit this paragraph or maybe are completely inappropriate for the theme of this paragraph. Always follow the text with the cursor so as to avoid the confusion or maybe skipping any line or skipping any word or directly skipping any information. So move the cursor along with the audio and focus on the transcript and the words mentioned. Do not try to make notes as you listen, because audio will be actually really fast, and doing this thing will make you lose the focus or the track of the audio running in front of you. This part has negative marking, so be very careful and mark only those words for which you are actually sure of. Need not to go for any guessworks. Once the audio is over, go for checking the words that you have marked, but again, need not to overthink, as overthinking might actually make you select or deselect any word, and there will be a chance that you might lose the marks, or maybe you might skip the word that you have actually marked correctly. So be very careful, as double clicking will deselect the word, and so you just have to make the single click for all the highlighted incorrect words that you think of. Last is right from dictation. Again, very important, but by the time audio or maybe the question moves towards this last question type, the test taker gets really tired and very limited time is left with us. So always manage your time. Again and again, I'm repeating that you actually have to manage your time. So moving on to the last slide, which is about right from dictation. Here, this is actually similar to the repeat sentences of speaking module, but in this for question type, you need to write it down, wherein in speaking you are actually repeating the sentences that you have heard. You will hear a sentence of 8 to 12 words, and every word carries 1 marks individually. Audio begins to play automatically, and you will be able to hear this audio only once. This 10-second sentence is when over. You actually get the time, and you can type down the sentence directly onto the screen, or maybe you can use your erasable notepad to write down the shortcuts. Here, you can actually go for first half remembering and second half writing, or first half you can actually write down and you can remember the second half, vice versa. Or maybe you can go for 3-word system, wherein you can actually write first 3 letters of all the words. Suppose the sentence was computer was very important. So for computer, you can go for COM, was very VERY, important IMP. So this will actually help you to save some time, and you can, once this audio is done and you are actually done writing, you can quickly write it down or maybe type it down on the screen, and you have to check for the spelling errors and move next. The frequency is around 3 to 4, and this is very important question as it gives marks to writing as well as to listening. So every correctly spelled word is will give you 1 marks, and incorrect or missed word will give you 0 marks. So no negative marking, and if there is any confusion with the words that you are thinking of, you can actually go for writing both. So moving on to the last slide, which actually deals in with the strategies and things to remember while attempting questions from right from dictation. So these are, you need to listen carefully and write the sentences on the erasable notepad. If your typing speed is good, you can use any of your strategy and you can type it down directly onto the screen, and later on once the audio is over, you can check for the mistakes, grammar errors, spellings, and make your sentence correctly. Words work very quickly and accurately so as to save your time and get all the marks that you actually deserve. Type as many words as you remember, but the order should be actually correct. If you actually remember a word but are not sure of its sequencing or maybe order, use the general grammar rules and accordingly fill in the sentence and check for the errors, spellings, tenses errors, and go for writing the words. Suppose you are actually not confident and about the word, whether it is singular or plural, I would suggest go for using both, because correct one will be getting the marks and the other one which you have actually used as a trick will be skipped. You will not be getting any negative here, but every word carries 1 mark, be it the prepositions, be it the articles or the main words in the sentence. So every 8 to 12 words sentence, so you will be getting marks for all 8 to 12, ranging average 10 marks you can actually get for both listening as well as writing. So equal weightage for both listening and writing. With this, we actually completes all the 11 question types, which gives marks to listening only. So overall, if I have to say that listening is very important and an easy module, but you actually have to consider the keywords that you are using. You need to maintain the content, spellings, and the grammar errors has to be taken care of. Also, go for practicing it as much questions as you can. If I just have to mention right from dictation, again, go for practicing 35 to 40 questions regularly so as to have good speed and good guesswork in all the listening part. So here we actually end with PTE listening question types, the things to remember while answering those questions. If you have any doubts, you can actually write to us or maybe visit your SIC's nearest branch and get yourself assessed in the form of test series, or maybe you can actually enroll yourself using the free demo classes.